Welcome to the This Gal Travels podcast, where I help you travel more, travel easier, and travel better. I'm Trina, and today we are going to be talking about why you should travel now and not later. And I'm going to give you some strategies for doing just that. Of course, my best pro traveler tip is at the end of the show, so be sure to listen all the way through. Now, when I say travel now, I know you can't necessarily just drop everything in your life and go right now. But what I am talking about is go sooner than later and not someday. This podcast is going to do a lot to defeat that, oh, someday I want to go do this. And I'm going to give you strategies for making travel a priority. But I've got to, when it comes to travel now or travel sooner than later, there are things you do not know. You need you don't know where your life is going to go. Let's just be honest here. When Tim and I set out in 2017, we did not know he was going to have a heart attack in 2022. I am glad that we were on the road the last 5 years of his life. He had a great time. He enjoyed it thoroughly. And if we had stayed home, we would have been home. Might the doctors have gotten a little more time for him? Maybe. But it wouldn't have been as fulfilled as us being out on the road. And when I'm talking about travel for you, it might simply mean taking the vacation of your dreams. I'm not talking about selling everything and traveling like we did. If you want to, that's awesome. But I'm talking about any length of travel you want to do. But you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And so that's one of the reasons I say go now, because anything can happen. And it might not be something that happens to you. What if the place that you dream of going suddenly becomes an unsafe place to go? That happened with me in going to Mali. I always wanted to go to Mali, and I never imagined it was going to become a dangerous place. And so while it was on my list, my travel plans kept getting moved. Part of it was the 2008 financial thing, depleted my savings a whole lot. And then, we weren't quite getting raises, and it's, I can't afford it this year, I can't afford it this year, I can't afford it this year. And then the next thing I know, Mali is off limits. Same thing, we got lucky with Myanmar, is, there was that, it was all military, and I'm not sure if you could visit then or not. But then there was that time where it wasn't military, and that was the window we went in, and now it's all locked down again. And so the way things are going politically in the world today, some places can become dangerous, dangerous for travel overnight. And I'm not one to be a scaredy cat about things. It's like if you go to a country and it's like, there's this little thing happening over here, just avoid that area. I don't mind that kind of warning. That's my personal sense of, safety. If that's all it is, I don't mind that kind of warning. But like right now, Senegal is having a lot of upheaval over election issues and democracy issues. I was there just a year ago. A little over a year ago. But it hasn't been that long since I was in Senegal. And right now, I don't know if I would recommend travel to there. There's things going on in Dakar, and almost anything that happens in Dakar will ultimately affect the rest of the country pretty good. So, and it'll probably calm down. It might not be that long that it's a little bit of a no-go. But that's what I mean, though, is you don't know what's going to happen in any given country. So if there's somewhere you want to go that's your dream destination, you don't want it to end up on a no-go list. If it's okay to go to now, make it your top priority. Absolutely. You don't know what might happen. The other reason you want to go sooner than later is, let's face it, you're not getting any younger. And do not give me the excuse of, I need to get in shape before I go on this trip, so I'll do it next year. Okay, if you're not someone who normally gets in shape for things, that's not going to happen. That's that someday syndrome. And, I didn't get in shape this year, I'll go next year. That doesn't work. Now, if you're doing something that's super physical, you're probably already one of those people that does physical, so you need to train this much because you're going to hike to Everest Base Camp or something. That's different. Your training schedule. You're someone that normally does high activity probably, and I'll trust your judgment on that. I'm talking about the average person who says, oh, but I want to be able to do this on the trip, or there's going to be a lot of hiking or a lot of walking and I'm not used to it, and I need to get in better shape before I go do that. No, that's one of those someday excuses that means you're never going to get there. Don't make that mistake. And I'm saying also, you're not getting any younger. You know, I've been traveling for more than 20 years. So I know it from a younger perspective, and now I'm 54, and I know it from this perspective too. And I still love doing the same stuff, and I am still as out of shape now as I was then, to varying degrees throughout the trip. Actually, when we've traveled a lot, I get in better shape because I have to carry all the luggage and all that. So, you know, you're going to get in a little bit better shape when you travel anyways. So I say, set your plans and go. In fact, having your plans set might encourage you to exercise more than if you just leave it as this vague someday in the future. Okay, so that's one of the strategies, is use that set date that you've made your trip plans for to motivate you to exercise, even if you're not planning any high exercise activities. Do expect to do a lot more walking than you might do on an average day at home. So at the very least, I would say, if you can, do a little extra walking when you're at home before your trip. And if you don't, go anyways. You'll figure it out when you get there. But if you're going to do any workout, even the mildest workout of a little extra walking to tone you up for all the sightseeing you're going to do, will be a major benefit. You'd be surprised at how beneficial that is. So let's get rid of that excuse. I will tell you this, is that if I have learned one thing, you will far more regret the things that you don't do in life than the things that you do. If you do something and it goes wrong, you might regret it. But you will have far more regrets for the things that you didn't do than the ones that you did do. I can promise you that. So that's another reason to go now and not later. So one of the things that makes travel more appealing now than ever before is that it is easier now than it has ever been before. Seriously, you have translation apps, you have map apps, you have hotel and booking apps. You can see places before you get there. A lot of places have virtual tours online, even if it's just someone walking around a town or a city, and you can see what the place looks like. If you are connected while you're in the country, which I highly recommend. I always buy a local SIM card in whatever country I'm in. But if you stay connected in the country, you can find places to eat very easily. I'll say that works probably the least good in Africa, because there are so many good places to eat that don't ever show up on Google. But you can still find at least major places. You know, if you just absolutely have no idea where to go, you can always find somewhere to eat or somewhere to visit or something to do. And you can investigate sites. If you're saying, well, I don't know if that tourist spot would be entirely worth it. You go online, you look it up, you see a YouTube video on it and see if it's worth it. You can see if it's worth your time or if it's something that you might not be interested in. There is such a wealth of info on almost any destination that you can go in so much more informed than in the past. When I started traveling, as I say, more than 20 years ago, and you had a guidebook, you had what was probably a crappy phrase book, if you could even do a phrase book at all, depending on where you were traveling. And that was it. And the guidebook, no matter how hard they tried, half of it's, half of the things like the accommodations and that, half of them are out of date as soon as it hits the press. So, it was always an adventure. If you wanted to call home, I was traveling at a time when there was email, even here like in Ghana, but you had to go to an internet cafe to access it, and it was slow. Oh man, it was so slow. And I know there were a bunch of times I wrote a big whole, hey, this is what I've done the last few days, and then it would delete, and I'd have to write the whole thing over. And that's what travel was like then. And now it is so easy, and it's so easy to stay connected. You worry about missing your friends, but you can FaceTime, Skype, Zoom. There's so many ways to stay in touch so easily. You can text. WhatsApp. WhatsApp is very popular when you travel, so that's a good app to be in when you travel anyways. It is not hard to stay in touch with people. There are so many things that make travel so much easier. In that sense, all the technology has made the world shrink in a good way, because there are so many places that are so much more accessible because you have all this information out there. So travel is easier now than ever. If you have visions of travel always being this rugged, hard thing, well, if that appeals to you, I have a podcast on getting off the beaten path, and I love that kind of travel. But most travel isn't like that nearly as much anymore. And there is so much that makes it so much easier. There's no excuse not to go now. It's not nearly as hard as it used to be. By the way, if you're enjoying this podcast and you haven't done it yet, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, so how do you defeat the one day I'll go there? Oh, one day I want to go to this place. Someday I'll go there. It's kind of simple. Is you pick the destination you most want to go to. I don't care how challenging it seems like it might be. And I'm not talking about any place that's in a dangerous war zone or anything like that. But whatever the place is, I have dreams of the Hanging Tiger Monastery in Bhutan and of Machu Picchu. Pick one. Pick the one that burns in your soul the most, that you really want to go to. And set a date. Set a date. You're going to have to you have to take your life into consideration. You have to take a little bit of work into consideration. You might have to take money into consideration. I'm going to talk about those obstacles in a minute. Set a date that is realistic for you to achieve and stick to it. Make it a priority. That's the thing, it can't be someday I'm going to do that. It's at this time I am going to do that. It needs to be a goal. It needs to be a priority in your life. Okay? That is the most important thing. And if you have a big adventure in mind, don't feel like you need to take a bunch of little tiny adventures to work up to that big adventure. Just go for the big one. You can handle it. I am serious. It's not as hard as you think it is. Go for the big adventure. Okay, and I already talked about getting in shape. If it's one that you do need to get a little bit in shape for, you want to do Machu Picchu, but you want to do the hike instead of taking the train, well, set your date, set your time, and then plan your workouts to work out up until then, okay? Also, while you're doing this planning, while you're picking this date, I hate to say it, but don't count on anyone going with you. And that may even mean your spouse. And I hope that you are in a relationship where your spouse, your significant other, is like the most awesome travel partner for you, and they're going to want to go with you, and there's going to be no hesitation. But if it's not somewhere they want to go, or if they don't like to travel, or they can't travel, whatever, I hope that they are of the mind that they're not going to stop you from living your dream. Okay? I really hope you're in that kind of relationship, that they'll either be enthusiastic about going with you, or at the very least, that they may not want to go with you, but they are going to fully support you in going on your own. Okay? But also, don't wait for your friends to say they're going to go with you. Don't wait for, oh yeah, I want to do that with you. If they want to do that with you and they manage to come along, great. But you set your goal and you don't alter it because they keep saying, oh wait, can I have a few more months? Can I have a few more months? No. Be prepared to go on your own, because you don't let anyone else stop you from living your dream. Okay? Don't let someone else stop you. And I will tell you this, when you travel alone, you will not be alone for long. Seriously. People will talk to you, whether it's other travelers or locals or both, usually. There is no better way to meet people than to travel alone. People, you just don't stay alone for long. Do not be afraid of traveling alone. As I say, if you have someone to come with you and they stick to it and they stick with your plan, great. But don't let them not going or them falling out of the plan. Don't let that stop you. Just go, Just have that mindset of you're going no matter what. If they want to come, great. If they don't make it, you're going anyways. So if you've been wanting to go and you haven't, or if you're sitting here and I'm talking to you about this and you're like, but I can't because of this, but I can't because of that. Let's take a look at your barriers. Okay. Figure out what is stopping you. Is it fear? Is it money? Is it time? So let's look at a few of the common barriers that stop people from traveling. Once you've made it a commitment, hopefully there will be fewer barriers. You're just going to say, okay, I've got to do that. But money, I'll talk about in the next section. That's one of the most common, and I understand that. Time. If you are someone who money isn't an issue, you have, that's not your issue. You can travel when you want to, but you don't have the time. Now, I know there's a lot of things that could be pressing on your time, but let me put a little perspective on some of them. If it's your job, if you are in a job that either does not allow you 2 weeks vacation at least, or they say you can have it, but then they never let you take it, it might be time for you to look for another job. Seriously. If you are not in a place that respects that you need some time to do things for yourself, I say get your resume together and start looking for something better in a place that has more respect for you as a human being. And I know I'm saying, well, you want to travel, so go change jobs. Yeah, because if you're working somewhere that doesn't give you that kind of respect, you deserve better. It's as simple as that. Any job worth its salt, any boss worth their salt, is going to want you to take your time off and to enjoy life. And when you take your time off, that means you're not doing stuff for them. You don't take your laptop with you so that you might take it with you for other reasons, but you don't take it with you to do work, okay? If you're not in a place that respects you that much, then you deserve better. If you're in a situation where you have commitments, you either take care of the kids or maybe you take care of an aging parent or something like that. I'm not saying shun your responsibilities, but ask yourself this. What if something happened where you couldn't be there? Whether you got sick, maybe you're in a minor accident. I don't want to put any big evil hexes on you, but something happens where you can't be there for a few weeks. Okay, what steps would be taken to fill in for you? Let's say you sprain your ankle and you can't help whoever you were helping before, and you're going to be off your feet for 3-4 weeks, something like that. What would happen? Who would fill in for you then? Would you hire someone? Would someone else in the family step up? And I am bringing this up because if they can do it in emergency, those same provisions can probably be made when you just need a vacation. And if you're taking care of someone all the time, whether it be kids or parents or anyone else, you need a vacation. You can't do that 24/7, 365. I mean, you need to be a human being and you need to reset and you need a vacation. So whatever provisions would be made if there were an emergency and you couldn't be there can also be made so that you can take a vacation. Okay? Keep that in mind. Consider, what would they do without me? And then say, okay, you need to do this without me for a couple weeks. Because you do need to take care of yourself. And travel is good for you. Travel is good for your soul. And you need to allow yourself that. And this is why I say to make it a priority. You can't live your whole life for other people. Sometimes you need to do something for yourself. And whatever the process is that is going to help you get these barriers down, it might take a year or two. You might need to save money. You might need to make other arrangements in your life, But that's why I say make whatever goal you have for the travel, make it realistic for you, but make it a priority as well. If it's going to take you 2 years to save, that's okay. At least you are working toward it. It's not someday, okay? Someday never comes. Someday just never happens. You need to make it a goal. And as I say, it's okay if it takes a while to get there. It is completely okay. I know that I did a trip to Egypt, and it was technically my very first solo trip. It wasn't intended to be solo. I was supposed to meet someone, and her plans got skewed. But I spent 2 years saving for that trip. I was saving like tip money from a coffee bar job. And it took me a while to save for that, but I got there, And so whatever it takes you to get to that, I still say make it a priority, but when I say travel now, it's okay if it's going to take you a year or 2 or 3. But don't just let it be, oh, I'll go next year because. Don't let it be a faint thing. Make it a hard target. So let's talk for a minute about budget. A lot of times people look at travel and they just think it's expensive. They look at these fancy hotels and all this expensive food and fancy restaurants, and they're like, oh gosh, I could never afford that. Well, let me introduce you to what I call comfort budget travel. It's not full-on backpacker travel. I'm not staying in dorms. I've never been fond of that. I only did that like one time. Didn't care for it. I do occasionally stay in places with shared bathrooms, like a hostel with a shared bathroom. If it's clean and well taken care of, I consider that fine. You can decide whether that's acceptable for you or not. But comfort budget usually means private bathroom, clean and comfortable bed, usually a desk also, because I have to do a lot on my laptop, and just a reasonably decent room. Something, as I say, comfort budget. So basically, it's the cheapest room I can get while still being comfortable. Okay, that's what I call is a cheap room that's comfortable. And so I'm going to give you a little perspective on prices. I can't guarantee prices. Things change, inflation happens. But in Southeast Asia, you can get a nice room, most of them for under $20 a night. And it's a perfectly good room. If you bump your budget to $30 a night, you are going to get some pretty nice rooms, some really nice rooms. And, of course, like if you're in the capital city, if you're in Bangkok, it's going to be more expensive than when you're in another city. So when I say 20, well, that might be closer to 25 to get what you would consider a comfortable room. But then there are places where you're going to get a room for, $13 to $15, and it's going to be completely fine. I mean, like no complaints kind of room. So Southeast Asia is very affordable in that realm. So now that I've said that you can get a room for, say, $20 to $25 a night in Southeast Asia, that sounds a lot more affordable, doesn't it? You see all the fancy places and you're thinking, oh, that's got to be $100 a night. No, it doesn't have to be. You can have a perfectly good place for very affordable amounts. Also, in a lot of places, if you're in one of those places where your dollar goes further, you can eat for $1 to $2 a meal. And even in a more restaurant experience, it can be $3 to $5 a meal. You do not have to eat big, expensive meals all the time. And I say that, and you should know that is eating local foods. As soon as you start trying to eat Western foods, they do go up in price, usually because the ingredients are harder to get, and you need to get a chef that knows how to prepare them. So if you're trying to eat Western, even like eating at KFC is not a budget meal in most of these countries. But you can get a very affordable room. You can eat for $1 or $2 a meal. And oh gosh, in Vietnam, $1.50 will get you any noodle dish in the world, anywhere on the street. 50 cents gets you an iced coffee, and you're just in heaven. You are not going to feel like you're eating cheap food at all. And that actually goes for that whole region. Southeast Asia is very affordable. When you get to Africa, it costs a little more in most cases to get a hotel that's in the kind of range that we're talking about. You're probably starting at $20 and going, I'll say 15 to 25, and you might have to push 30-ish for like capital cities and that sort of thing. A lot of things are just more expensive here. Africa is a really big continent, and it does depend on the country. There's a lot of, there's 54 countries here. They're all going to have different situations. Like Mauritania ran expensive. I even had to push 40 there because there's just not that much stuff there, and everything they have is imported. Okay, the more things a country makes in country, the more affordable things are going to be. So Africa runs a little more than Southeast Asia. You can definitely stay under $50 a night and get good places. Honestly, I'm usually in the 20 to 25 range in most places in Africa. As I say, I might need to bump towards 30 a little in certain capital cities. between booking sites, and I use booking.com because I have used it so much. I'm like a special member, and I often get free breakfasts and that sort of thing. Also look for free breakfasts when you are budget traveling. See if it's included, because that'll save you a lot. If it's $2 more than you want tonight, but it includes a free breakfast, consider it a wash. That's very good. Also consider location, because if you get something that's further out and cheaper, you have to consider your taxi fare for getting into town. So those are a couple of tips for considering budget. But as I say, you don't have to think that hotels are $100 or $150 or $200 a night. You know, even Moline National Park, okay, their cheapest room right now is running about $38 a night. And again, these prices can change, so don't hold me to this. That's the cheapest room. But if you have people with you, there's like 3 good-sized beds in that room. It's a big room. And it's a destination room. Hopefully I'll get the Mole video made soon, and you can come out and check it out on YouTube. And it's very special being actually in the park. It's worth staying a night or two. And yeah, the top end rooms do get up there in price, but the low end ones are completely fine. And while they're more expensive than I usually go, being on premises, when you hear, oh, hey, there's elephants up by the hotel over here, you can go see them. Or you walk out and there's a warthog on the lawn right in front of you. You know, it's worth being there. There are times when you make exceptions to your budget. But I was just trying to show you that that it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. And in fact, some places, yeah, you pay a fair amount on the plane ticket, and but then it's cheap when you get there. And that's completely fine, because it balances. You get a cheap plane ticket, it might be more expensive when you get there, vice versa. And another way to save money when you're in the country is take local transport when you can. If you can take a bus rather than hiring a private driver, oh, you're much better off. And like here in Ghana, they have STC, which are some nice buses. They're first class, they have some air conditioning, they have comfortable seats, and they travel between all the major destinations. They're a great system. But most places have a pretty decent, a lot of places I should say, have a good bus system. So use buses when you can, only use private drivers when you really need to. By the way, if you are traveling, I designed a bunch of really cool travel journals, and especially some safari and Africa journals, but I have them for journals that'll work for anywhere in the world. I'll leave a link in the description, and if you want to check them out, please do so. And you may wonder why I'm so serious about travel. I'm like, well, if they won't let you go, then get another job, or, you know, take these steps. The thing is, travel is so good for you. I say it's good for your soul, and it is, and it teaches you so many things. If you're new at traveling, but every time you conquer something new and different, you enrich yourself. It is a small victory. Some of them are big victories, and some of them are small victories. But every time you do something new, you expand your horizons, but you also give yourself more confidence. You're like, well, I've done this once, I can do it next time. Or you come across a situation that's similar sometime in the future when you're back home, and you say, oh, hey, this is familiar, I can handle this. And you just feel more confident. And this is why I say, you know, travel is just good for you. And it is so much better to spend your money traveling and doing something and having experiences than it is to own a fancy car or expensive sneakers or a shiny piece of jewelry. I guarantee you, in the long run of life, the experiences you have while traveling will far outweigh any shiny bauble you can buy. And that's why I think travel should be a priority in your life. It not only makes you a more resilient person, it'll make you a more empathic person. You will learn that, well, one of the great things to celebrate is the differences all over the globe. It's wonderful to see how different places are and different cultures are. You will also find that in essence, we are all the same. We all want the same thing. And you will realize that that person that at one point in your life you might have thought of as strange or different or as the other is no longer the other. You come to understand they're just a person. Okay? And it's getting to know people. This is why, well, I will never say don't take a tour. I always say try to leave some time on at either the beginning or the end of the tour. Leave a few extra days to explore a place for yourself, because part of travel, part of the enrichment is getting to know people, okay? Is getting to come to understand people. And this is the way that you make connections. This is the way you make memories. And this is why I so much advocate for, as much as I say, if you do a tour, fine, leave yourself some extra time. But this is why I advocate independent travel. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean solo travel. It may mean solo, it may mean with an awesome travel companion. But I say independent travel where you're not stuck to a tour. That I think is the absolute best way to travel. You might use a guide here and there, but you can go where you want, when you want. You can meet as many people as you want. You can take this side trip because you got invited to something. That is my favorite kind of travel. The freewheeling, go anywhere you want, whenever you want. You might have a plan, but you might not stick to it. To me, that is the absolute best way to travel. And as I say, if you're a tour person and that's what you need to be on a tour to feel secure when you travel, that's okay. I'm not gonna badmouth that. I'd rather have you travel on a tour than not at all. But as I say, I always advocate leave yourself a couple extra days so you can really see the place. No matter where you go, try and really see the place. Try and get out of the tourist bubble. Get out of your hotel, get out of the standard tourist sites, and go see the place for where it really is. Even if it's just walking around the city all on your own with no great aim. It's always good to do that at least for an afternoon. If you do nothing else, just go see the place for the way it really is. So my pro traveler tip for today is no matter how you want to travel, choose a destination. Choose the destination that just burns in your soul, that you would want to do more than anything. And set a date. Set a realistic date. Make it a hard goal that you want to travel. And do everything in your power to make that trip happen. Okay? You've got to decide it's a priority and make it happen. You will not regret it. Travel is one of the best things you can ever do with your life. Take that trip now, as soon as you can, and do not fall into the someday trap. I hope you've been enjoying yourself with these podcasts. I'll have more tips for you next time, and I will see you then.